Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Weather Report, and today I just wanted to go on a little rant about the economy and being a part of Gen Z and just affording a life, because I can't be the only one who's overwhelmed by just how unaffordable everything is today. And I'm not talking about anything crazy like a penthouse or a nice car. I'm talking like the basics, food and rent. Because yesterday, for example, I went to the nearest discounter, so where you get the cheap stuff. And I bought, 3 packs of chicken, a couple of protein puddings, little bit of milk, and all that cost me 25 bucks. And this is food for maybe 2 days at max. Mind you, this is the cheapest and most low quality food you can get in my area. And I'm forced to buy this because I'm a student and I don't have a lot of money. So if I were to, pay attention to quality, I would pay like 3 times the amount. So for 2 days of food, I don't know how much I would be paying, but this can't be fucking normal. And the housing is even crazier. Let's say you're a student like me and you go to a foreign city or somewhere, you get yourself a part-time job for minimum wage because there's nothing else you can do besides doing college. And then a fuck-ass studio, like a little, I don't know how many square feet studio, costing a couple $1,000s at least in a major city where, of course, most universities are located. You won't find a university in a random ass village where rent is half of what's in the city. So, you are forced to pay these prices and thus have a low quality of life, with food and everything else. And, these are just the basic necessities you have to pay to live. I haven't even started talking about like entertaining. When you go out with your friends to do something or to eat at the place or to go to the fucking movies. Because if in 2026 you want to watch a movie, you're going to be spending at least 30 bucks for the tickets and some mediocre ass snacks at a movie theater. And if after the movie you want to eat something with your friends, you have to pay an extra 30 bucks at least. So basically today, if you don't have somebody supporting you financially, you won't be able to live alone and, begin a life as a new adult. And so what's the only logical solution? You stay with your parents. For example, in Germany, 30% of 25-year-olds still live with their parents. And that's one of the better countries in the EU when it comes to this statistic. And it's not just Europe. It's every Western country because we live together in a completely fucked economy. And I can already hear some old dude complaining about why we're not just working harder and putting more effort into getting a good job and stuff, whilst they grew up in an economy where 3 times their median household income could pay them a full house, where today you'll be spending decades paying off that mortgage that you took out to get a mediocre ass house. Not only that, but back then it was normal that only one of the parents would be working, and it was enough to buy a house, multiple cars, a vacation house and a yearly vacation. But today that's unthinkable. You don't have households where a single person can sustain an entire family, and it's only gonna get worse in the future, to be honest. I don't see it getting any better. And if you decide that you maybe want to have kids someday, you probably won't be able to afford it at all, even if both parents are working. So these old people just have completely lost their touch to reality. Because let's say one of these boomers in 1979 worked a minimum wage job for $2.90 an hour, they would have to spend around 385 hours at minimum wage to afford the average tuition. With today's minimum wage, an average tuition would take you 2,229 hours at average to afford your tuition. This is a huge difference, and I think old people should maybe just shut up because they're the ones who fucked up the economy in the first place. They should maybe take a step back and let us, the newer generation, handle the things. Maybe we could change something about the economy, make it so that our generation gets the same opportunities that they had back then, because I'm tired of hearing that we're just not working hard enough, that we should just stop being lazy and get ourselves a better job, or just to put in more hours, because you can put in as many extra hours as you want, it won't make a difference because everything is so unaffordable. And all you'd have to do to realize this inequality is to look at inflation compared to the hourly wages and how it's increased over the years. But not only is it unfair to us, but it is also demotivating, because I know I'll go to university and I'll study for 3 or 4 years to get my degree, and with that degree I'll be able to afford the same standard of living as a bus driver in the 70s who dropped out of high school and doesn't even have a diploma for that. And I already know if I want to have some quality in my life, I'll have to get into the corporate world where I'll be eaten like wolves, because the competition is just so high. Compared to the 70s, you could just apply to one company and work there for the next 40 or 50 years and you'd be set for life. You would never have to worry about anything at all. You were like in a family, but today it's all corporate, cold, and everything is simply based on how you deliver. If you have a bad time, for example, they're just going to replace you. So it's just hard to put in the effort, knowing that you won't get what you could have had 30-40 years ago, before even really beginning to get in the job market. And this is all the corporate work. If you are somebody who, I don't know, finished high school and then immediately went to work, you will probably be a wage slave, working in the McDonald's or somewhere behind the counter, where you'll be abused by your superiors for minimum wage. And all the manufacturing jobs are being imported into countries where it is cheaper to produce, like, I don't know, India or Bangladesh. So those workplaces are also gone, meaning you're forced into a few specific jobs that are absolutely horrendous to do and are, in my opinion, just not worth it. And that's why a lot of people, rather than working, just rely on state help. So in the EU, the majority of the countries have a program where if you don't have a job, but you send in job applications and you get denied from those applications, you can request state help. And so what a lot of people do is, because they see that it's just not worth working in this economy, it's not worth it to put in the effort, because your living standards won't increase if you put in the effort and the work and you go study and everything else. A lot of people just rely on state help and they live their lives away, doing absolutely nothing but leeching off the state and taking the taxpayers' money. So in my head, it's like, I'll study, I'll go to work, I'll put in all the effort that I can, just for my taxes to be used on people who chose the easier way, that I'll be the one to pay for their food and their house. And on top of that, I myself won't be able to have a living standard that I would like. So yeah, this is my view on things. I know I sounded pretty pessimistic, but anyway, will be putting in the effort. And I'm quite interested to hear your opinion about the situation and how you deal with all of this and how you manage to deal with life in these times. If you have something to say, just say it in the comments. I'll guarantee you I'll reply, and yeah, see you in the next video.